context to communicate something, and they are easily recognizable and easy to remember. And the first time a digital icon actually appeared in a graphic user interface was with the likes of the first versions of Macintosh and also Microsoft Windows. And they were associated with programs or files which could be opened double-clicking on each of the icons. So the first set of icons were just pictures of objects that were familiar, let's say like baskets for being a trash, which is still used today. And they were they are by definition language independent, meaning they can be recognized without text to indicate their meaning. So all these icons started with the sense that these are things we see every day. As at then, when they wanted to show that you can delete something, they use trash. And to date, they still use trash. When you want to open a Windows folder, the design is basically like an office folder that people actually used back then. And so these were like the styles that started they started icon with, and this is like the first interface that the first digital icons appeared on for consumers. I think around 1981 for Xerox Auto. Xerox Auto was one of the first computer to actually support an operating system, like the first computer where you can actually see something to interact with on screen. So it was like the first computer to support an operating system based on a graphic user interface, and this was done by Xerox Auto. Basically, after which, the next one was actually the Apple Lisa, the one Jobs named after his daughter around 1983. The Macintosh came with the Apple Lisa, and the icons here were designed by Susan Carey, basically, and they were like simple icons that without labels you are going to actually understand. You can see the folders are designed as folders, calculators are designed as calculators and stuff, but without labels, without anything, you can actually understand what the icons are. So what are the types of icons we actually have? There are different types of icons. Basically, we have different types of icons, the filled or colored icons. So for filled or colored icons, they are just icons that are actually just colored. They can either have a solid color or a gradient color, and it makes when icons are filled or colored, they make them less formal and more playful. And there are downsides to some, and the downside to a colored icon is that it can be more challenging to integrate into a product or aesthetics, into a product aesthetics, and can sometimes distract users from meaningful content. So for filled icons, like the first icon you can see on my screen is a filled icon. The padlock here is a filled icon, and the human here is a filled icon, and also the love icon here is a filled icon. We also have outlined icons. Outlined icons are created by just vector strokes and kind of empty. Yeah, they're kind of like empty inside. They also have their pros and cons, and on the upside, they are clean, minimalist, and can look very polished. And when it comes to the downside, they can take users more time to actually process and recognize. So what I mean by outline icons are these ones. They are like just strokes. They are like the opposite of the filled or colored icons. They are just strokes, and they are empty inside. So basically, they are empty inside. So like I mentioned, the downside basically is that sometimes it can actually take people to actually process or recognize these icons. And one of the reasons it takes time is because when it gets smaller, depending on the scale of your design, you might not really see them very well. Okay, so for the other types of icons, there are stuff like universal icons. Universal icons, like I mentioned the other time, are immediately recognizable and usually represents repetitive actions like let's say a house or home as we call it in design, home, print, search. Those are like universal icons. For example, you have search icons, which is traditionally anywhere you see search, what you see is basically a a magnifying glass. Uh, you get, and they are like things we don't really change in designs. Anytime you go to anytime I got disconnected for a while, so please type if you can still hear me now. All right, all right, all right. Sorry about that. I have to switch my network to my mobile data because of NEPA issues. Yeah. So I'm back, and I was at Universal Icons. Basically, yeah, like I mentioned, the search icon is basically a very good example of universal icons. Anywhere you see a search box, anywhere you see something about search, all we all see is what's the name? A a magnifying glass. So if you are trying to change things, like let's say I'm designing a search bar and I'm using something else, let's say like a binoculars. Basically, I'm basically trying uh, uh, to to confuse a lot of people. So when it comes to universal, can you guys hear me? And the trash, the search bar, the search icon, the home icon, they are like these samples of universal icons that you always see around. Also, basically, the other ones we have is the dual tone icons. So the dual tone icon is just basically an icon that has two similar colors that are distinctly separated. So dual tones icons are icons that can just add some extra visual interest to your design without overdoing them. You understand? It's just the only downside to it is basically that at the very small side, they can be very hard to see or decipher or try to or understand basically. And samples of dual tones icons. I think I can count this as a dual tone icon. It has two distinctive icon colors. Basically, a lot of people also try to create icons and dual tones icons from from normal icons, I can actually create my own style just to create a style around my design. Another type of icon would be the unique icon. So unique icon represents unique functions or features. Uh, and unique icons are like icons that they can vary hard to decipher at the first time of using a product or a website. Basically, unique icons are unique to the brand. Basically, let's say to Facebook, if they have their own unique icons that you can only see on their site. Uh, Basically, and um, if you're on Twitter, Twitter Spaces is a sample that until you actually get used to it, that's when you know that this icon is meant for Spaces. So they are called unique icons. If you use them, if you use unique icons, the best idea is that make sure you try to include text labels so that users don't have to guess their meaning. Basically, I can remember, let's say like 2 years ago, there's always one constant talk on Twitter in the design space then, which was label your icons. I'm of the side that it's not necessarily you label your icons, but when you are using unique icons, you actually should label your icons. You understand? So when it comes to labeling your icons, it should be especially for unique icons. And one thing Twitter is not doing right is they have a lot of unique icons, but they are not labeling it. So I have to guess every time on which tab I'm actually clicking on to actually know where I'm going to, basically. So one thing I didn't put here is I think they are like icons that look alike or have different meaning, and they are possible like they are meant to be universal icons, but they can be used in multiple. They can be used in conflicting places. So example is they can be conflicting. An example is the like on post. If you want to like on post on Facebook, you will see a thumbs up, and on Instagram, I think it's a love an art button, and on some is either a star. I think, yeah. So for some app, when you want to like something, you actually give thumbs up. Facebook, for example, if you want to like something on Instagram and which other one? And Twitter, it's a love button. On some, it's actually star, and we also have this thing called bookmark. So on some on Google Chrome, I think for you to bookmark on Google Chrome, it's called you use a star icon, and to bookmark on Twitter, you use something more of a paperclip kind of thing. These are like conflicting icons. They act the same way, but on different platforms they are different. You understand? So you have to actually be learning this kind of things on the platform. So if I go to Twitter, I know the love is for like, but if I go back to Facebook, I have to reorientate and say the thumbs up is actually for like basically. So those are like the types of icons uh, that we have. So how do you select um, your icons, basically? So selecting icons for design, one of the things you need to notice, it has to be easy to recognize. So one thing that makes an icon great is the fact that its meaning can be understood without reading a label. So as I'm seeing the icon, do I understand what it is? I see trash. Obviously, trash means I'm throwing something off inside the bin. Does your trash actually operate the way a user has actually thought of it basically? Then it has to be clear. Clarity is the most important characteristic of any user experience or user interface design, basically. But sometimes our icons they break this clarity. Uh, one thing is for you to actually understand that for users to easily recognize things, meaning test if your icons can actually recognize at small sizes, basically. And if you can see my sample here, this is an icon for a music, uh, basically at different sizes. Can a user recognize this icon? Understand? This is an example of that. I have different sizes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, and for the 5 different ones, depending on the page they have, I can make a symbol that I can see, basically. And when I talked about conflicting, when I talked about conflicting icons, you can see I have favorite here, and I also have favorite here. Basically, you can see it's love that is here, and in another place it is actually what's the name? It's actually star. So I think in my Samsung Note, if I'm trying to favorite my notes, I use the star, and another place I use love. I think on list when you are favoriting something, you actually use love, then saves in your love folders, basically. So those are like conflicting icons. Yeah. So the next thing you should notice is that your icon should be visually pleasing. Basically, it is possible to convey brand personalities through illustrations, colors, and icons. And when it is done right, your icons can actually give your um your users a appeal of sweet, fine, cool kind of vibe whenever your icons are have very good visual uh to them. And yeah, the third one is properly sized. Basically, size icons in what's the name, in the right manner, and they must not be too big and they must not be too small. Basically, depending on where you are using them, depending on how you are using them, make sure the sizes are the same. So for the target users, make sure and have have a lot of space for them. I think one of the things that people do a lot is leaving too little space for icons on mobile, and that's one of the mistakes we should try to avoid as designers. Especially when you design for touch, make sure your icons are sized for large uh, for large thumbs to actually be able to click on them if they are supposed to be clickable, basically. And I think there's a recommended size for touchscreen object, which is about 5 to 10 mm. A lot of people use the thumb to actually measure how big your icons should be, basically. And also, when you are sizing your icon, make sure you have a lot of padding, basically, so that uh, one, if you have many icons together, you have to be able to so that users won't tap on any one mistakenly, basically. So you have to have enough padding. The size should be accurate, should not be too big and should not be too small, basically. The last one will be consistency. So when you're designing, you should be consistent with one, the style of icons you're using, and two, uh, the way they are represented. Whether you label your icons, make sure you label them everywhere. except from where you don't need to label, which is very rare. Like example is the hamburger icon, the close icon. Most of them you don't need to label them on mobile. Basically, so if you are using a field icon, take to your field icon at least on a page. But mostly on designs, you should be able to stick to your uh, field icons. So as you can see in my diagram to here, you have this is the best practice. Once I'm using this style of icon, I should use the style of icon across board. The things I shouldn't do is using this different types of icon style on a particular design. Basically. So like you can see here, I've used outlined icons here, 1, 2, and here I'm using field icon colored. No, it shouldn't be like that. It should be consistent in the style, the brand, the colors, and everything on the what's the name on the designs, basically. So yeah, just a quick recap. Make sure your icons are easy to recognize. They are visually pleasing, fine icons. We are UI designers. We are trying to make things pleasing for users to use. Properly size your icons. And 4, make sure they are very, very consistent, uh, basically. So before I move on to the last slide, oh, okay. Some people are saying they can't see my screen. Sorry, please. If you can't see my screen, let me know. All right. All right. I I I re-shared my screen now, so I think everybody should be able to see it. If you can't see it, please let me know. Okay, so if you can see it, I think I'm fine. From my hand, I think if you can't see it, it should be your network or something else. Yeah. So before I move to the next side of the discussion, uh, are there any questions to ask about icons that I should answer right now? All right. Okay. So I'll continue. Um, the next thing will be where can you get icons? So for icons, there are different places you can get your icons. One, you can create your icons yourself, and you can create your icons yourself. Two, you can download your icons. Basically, where do I get my own icons from? So depending on the kind of project I'm working on, depending on the style I'm working with, and there are people called icon designers also. Most times they are UI designers that actually do the icons. But for my own, I'm not perfect with illustration, so most times I actually don't try to do my icons. Is either I contract it out or I go to one of these websites to actually get my icons. So most of these icon websites are actually free places where you can get your icons. We have the flat icon, icon archive, one or free downloads, free pics, and co. Basically, and these are places you can actually um, get your icons, but some of them are actually freemium in the sense that they give you free icons to a particular level. Then at a point you need to start paying, or they limit the kind of things you get, and basically, and there are also things called icon packs where when you're working on a project, like I said, you have to be consistent. So there are people that have actually done consistent styles for major what's the name for major icons that you will need in a design, basically, and they create different styles for you. So I'm coming out. I want to try to share a sample of a of a of an icon pack where whenever you see them, they look the same, basically. So one of my places to actually get icons from is Flat Icon. I'm a premium member there, so I try to get my icons there, and I try to look for packs that, okay, this is the style I'm trying to do. This is what I'm going to. This is how I'm going to use them. So let me just share my screen to show you something um, of icon packs. All right. So right here is Flat Icon. This is one of the samples of where you can actually get your icons, and they kind of have like unlimited number of icons and styles, basically, and they've kind of grouped it for users to actually see. So basically, anytime I'm doing designs and I need icons, I try to come here to look for the styles I want. So depending on the field, the kind of designs I'm doing, the field I want to actually give out, I come here and then look for the right icons for my design. And they have tools to actually help you edit, basically to help you look out for designs that are. Sorry, someone said they can't see my screen again. How about now? Okay. Okay, thanks. So if you can see it, I think if you can see it, I think it's your network. Yeah. So on Flat Icon, they actually have like different places where you can get icons. So if I'm doing an app where I need uh common icons, they are like I just need a pack of common icons that look the same, that I don't need to change. I just come here and look for it. I can just come on drop downs and look for and tell this stuff to group it by pack. So if I say, let's say one common thing is search. If I look for search here and I see search, it brings them in packs for me. So basically I can see that this particular icon, if I like the style, I can see that I have multiple icons that I can use across board. I think they have like different pages, and I can just download the pack. Once I download this pack, I know for my designs throughout anywhere I need this icon, I come back to this pack, and then I use it. And I think they have an interface library that actually has these styles in different these icons in different formats. Basically, they have it in regular, which is basically to show you uh, the common icons in this style. You can either go for bold. So if I'm going for bold, basically they are all supposed to show this. Why is that? They show me the bold ones. Basically, if they are solid, I see them in their solid colors, and I'll be able to download them. And the style also, like this team already made it that okay, if they are solid, should my style be straight or rounded? They kind of like have this, and you can always update or download from here. So they have like a pack that once you come here, you can just. I downloaded this whole pack on my own because I used it for a particular project. So anytime I'm working on that project, I go back to this pack to look for common icons. And if I don't find that icon, I have to create one that actually looks so well like this, basically. So most times, how do I create my icons? I try to like see a lot of them or just work on, try to look for them here. If I don't find them, I can work with my partner to just create one. They work well on with the illustrations to just do stuff out. So basically, this is like a very good sample of where you can actually get all your icons. Finally, it's like my daily tool for myself, basically. And you can find any style of icon. Even though right now, I think if you are not a premium user, you can only download in PNG, basically. But if you're a premium user, you can download in Invectors so that you'll be able to edit them later, basically. So you can download Invector. Once you download Invector, you can edit the image to fit your design style, and the brand you're actually working on, basically. So yeah, that's a sample of where you can actually get your icons, basically. Yeah, I think that's it for icons. And before I move on, any other question on icon? Because I would like to move to the next element we are trying to learn today, which is buttons and how you are going to be using your buttons. So if you have any question, you can just raise your hand or just drop a comment and I will answer the question. All right. Uh, okay, someone has a question. Okay, Ayola, you can speak.
Yeah, my question is, talked about platform and website where we can get icons. So my question is, what about icon plugins? Do they serve the same purpose?
Yeah, there are some plugins on Figma, there's some plugins on XT, there are some plugins on Sketch that allows you to get connected to most of these websites. There are some people that have created all these things. So yes, there are some plugins that you can actually use to get your icons. So these plugins can be found on the tool you're using. Let's say Figma, and basically they have a community where you can get all these icons. So also there are icons that are based on the interface you are designing for. Material has their icon styles. Apple also have their icon styles, and there are different libraries that you can actually get your icons from, basically. So like I shared the about for flat icon for interface designs. Then also you me UI. If you go to material design, also they actually also have their icon style. So plugins are available. You can basically get plugins from Figma and use them. Just make sure they are the same style you are using all through, and don't try to mix and match different styles. It will be confusing and it won't be neat when it comes to UI design, basically. All right. So right now I'll be moving to the next thing for the day, which is buttons and how we are supposed to style button. Sorry, don't mind my what's in the slides. My slides are lazy designs, basically. So what is a button? A button is an interactive element that actually enables to get the expected interactive feedback from system following a particular command. Basically, a button is a control that allows a user to directly communicate with the digital product and send the necessary commands to achieve a particular goal. And in simple terms, buttons allows us to I am going here, I am going here, I am going here. Or a buttons allows the user designer to direct the user to say go here, and get here. Basically, so all the actions we perform on an interface on a GUI is actually enabled by buttons. So there are different types of buttons. There are buttons we know to be buttons, and there are buttons we don't know they're actually buttons. Basically. So one and there are rules to UI buttons. To buttons, one of the for a button is that you have to place your buttons where users can actually spot them easily. Your buttons must be clear, crisp, and short labels to and be of short labels, not long labels where they are too long for users to read or they are just too long. Then sometimes you can be creative with your buttons, depending on the shape you use, something to just make sure you're catching the user's attention. So you might have seen buttons that you don't even know they are buttons, basically. So that is basically like the foundation of what buttons are. And what we'll be talking about are the types of buttons. What are the types of buttons that we have? There are basically many types of buttons. We have CTA button, text button, ghost button, drop-down button, floating action button, hamburger button, plus button, expandable button, share button, and raised buttons. So these are like the different types of buttons you actually are going to see, interact with on a GUI. These are like things we cannot run away from. These are the best way for us to actually communicate to a user to take actions. They are not coming to just come and stare at screens. They are coming to actually take actions. You understand? So buttons enable us to do that. So that's why we actually have a lot of them. And each of them are unique in their own ways. There are ways you can actually use them. Where I'm using a drop down button, I'm not using it because it is fine. I'm using it because it has to serve a purpose. Where I'm using an expandable button, I'm not using it because I just like the way WhatsApp did the expandable button and I want to use it. When I'm using floating action button, I mean Fab, I'm using it to actually allow users to take a specific action. So what are these type of buttons? I will try to explain each of them. I think they are long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I'll try to explain each of them, hopefully, so that we can fully understand when and why to use this kind of and they are actually used on interface. So I think I'll be showing you some examples of each of them and tell you just a little more about it. So the first one will be CTA button. So what's a CTA button? Basically, a CTA button is a call to action button. Is like an interactive element of a user interface that is directly aimed to encourage a user to take an action. Like I mentioned, whenever you're on the website, you want people to take an action. How do you get users to actually take these actions? You directly aim something for them to read, to see, big in their eyes and say, take this action. It's more or less like my first action on an page when I go to a website, I'm supposed to see what is the website telling me. When you go to many websites, all you see is log in, sign up. They're trying to sell something to you. So after after the text of you trying to sell something to me, what is the next action a user is supposed to take? Basically, that's what we call call to actions. When you're on website and you're browsing through websites, call to actions are seen everywhere on the website. Basically, let's say as I go to a particular website, the first thing, okay, the sample here is Hotjar. I'm not sure if you can see the screen very well, but the sample here is Hotjar. And if you get to Hotjar, the first thing they are telling you is all-in-one analytics and feedback. Then they showed you their CTA. Their CTA is basically try it for free. This is the main thing they want you to do. So if you are coming here for the first time, first thing they want to do is, I want to grab you as a user. Don't jump away. Use me. I'm a tool for you to be used. Just use me. So their action to that is the CTA they are using, which is try it for free. And basically, if as a user, I'm not convinced with the text that they wrote here, I want to learn more about it, what will I do? I'll scroll up on the page or try to look at other links on the page. Basically, I will scroll. If I scroll, they will still try to sell me that same thing that they sold up there, and I feel like, oh, this guy is stubborn. He needs better, more explanation. They will put more. So drop this, try it for free. There, another action button just to tell you, okay, do this. So if you're on the website or anything, you always interact with a call to action buttons. They represent the conversion for a particular page or screen. And you can see here, their first conversion is you clicking on here. And to my left, you will see this is a shop, basically. And their main CTA when you're on a product is actually for you to add it to a cart. So on some apps, you might see buy now. On this one is add to a cart. They want you to make sure, okay, you've checked this product, add to a cart, and continue shopping. Basically, it's more of as you go to the mall, you are with your cart. You just don't select go and pay first, then come back and select. So these ones, they want to make sure that as you are moving around the mall, you are with a cart and you are pulling everything into a cart. So their call to action here is to cart. So basically, a call to action in the simplest form is that it turns a passive user into a very active user, basically. So that's what I would say more about call to actions. They are like the biggest, the boldest actions you will see on pages. They try to make you do something because they are trying to convert you. It's basically a conversion to do. So a call to action is basically used for that. So whenever you're designing stuff and you want to users to do a very main action, what you will term as success in your design, a call to action is actually used for that. Yeah. So the next one is text button. So just like the word text button is a button represented with a piece of text, meaning the text is not integrated into any shape, um, or is it filled with colors or tabs or anything like that. So it doesn't look like a button actually. It's normal, the normal standard text, but how do you use it is the question. How you use it and how where it is used. Basically. So for this year, you can see on a land on a website, basically whenever you go to a website, you see different buttons. There are many buttons, so we don't want to confuse you. We have spots to other. We want you to take an action first. So the basic action that you already on it is going to be the call to action, the CTA action button, like the sample here. This is the CTA, but they still want you to visit other places on the website. How do they lure you to these places? They use the text button. So basically, the text buttons are like the about page, the product page, and stuff, but they are subtle, they are text, and with the labeling that you use, you are able to understand the context of it being a button and not just a plain text. You understand? So this is a sample of where a text button can actually be used on a website. And to the left, you can see a label kind of button. Basically, it's not fully a text button, but it's also a label, but it's not the normal call to action. And it helps you to just there are like what's the name? There are like some surroundings to it to just give it more life, because on the kind of interface it is, you won't be able to it's more used in toggle state. So basically, you cannot use text buttons on paragraphs. We call them hyperlinks. Basically, where as I'm reading through a long paragraph, you can just see a distinctive one, which is either distinctive by color type or by an underline. So most times when you're on the website and you see a paragraph and you see one particular one, let's say click here, and the click let's say you have something like for you to get to this course material, please click here. It's a paragraph, but one particular thing might be different. The click here might have a different color, or it has a different property. Is either it's bolder than the others, or a user actually uses the underline what's the name, an underline on the text, so that it shows visually that there's a difference here. Basically, these are like the samples of where you can actually use um, a a text button, basically. So the next one I'll be talking about will be the drop down button. Yeah. So drop down buttons are not just buttons we use because we like them. Like I mentioned, they are things where you use for users to be able to select another thing or take another action. So drop down buttons are buttons that when you click it, it displays a drop down list of mutually exclusive items. You can often come across this type of types in settings buttons. When a user chooses one of the options in the list, is usually marked as active, uh, or and most times, how do you know when one is active? Is that it uses the color to change, the color changes, and basically so that you be able to know that, yeah, an action has been taken, or the field changes. And a sample here is basically this screen you can see here. So this screen, you can see that it has a button here, which is the drop down button. So when you click on it, it shows you extra options. You understand? And you are able to select any options from it. Sometimes you can select multiple, sometimes you can only be restricted to select one. So depending on the use case, you can have multiple selects and single select. And on you can see another style of using a drop down click is they used a text and a drop down icon to actually show that you can click more on this. So basically, and once you click on it, it shows you pop out and you can select anyone that you want to select for. Drop down should not be used when you have just two options. Drop down should be used when you have more than four options. Basically, there are other ways you can actually use uh, uh, that you can use instead of using the drop down buttons when you don't have more than three options. Um, basically, so the other one is ghost button. So ghost button is basically all I should yeah, ghost button is a transparent button that looks empty. Yeah, it looks empty, or let's say naked. Basically, so most times a lot of people use a shape or border to actually create this kind of button. Instead of ghost button, a lot of people also understand it to be an outline button. So this kind of buttons helps to set the visual hierarchy in case there are several CTA elements. You understand? the core CTA is represented with a field button, while the secondary element is given a ghost button, basically. So like your main thing, but you still want users to be able to do another thing. This is where a ghost or outline button comes into play. So for example, what you can see here is you have a landing page, but and their CTA is basically this distinctive one. The distinctive one you will see with the brand color, everything is just shining out to you, which is like the very distinctive one. And then they have a ghost one to the side, which is the outline one, basically. So the major thing they want me to do right here is for me to start building for free. But if I'm not getting ready to start, they give me another option to actually explore the docs. So I'm sure when I'm exploring the docs, something will still take me to the start building for free kind of action that they still want me to take, basically, because that's their conversion rate. And to my left, you can see this is like a login screen. And basically, they are using a ghost button. And a ghost button for them is not an outline button. They used a text button because of the kind of interface they are doing. But in this context, we will still be naming this a ghost button because it is like the secondary action you are taking on a screen. That's why it is called a ghost button. So basically, the characteristics of both ghost or outline button is that they are naked, empty, hollow, and they are distinctively different from the main call to action on a page. So places where you see them use the loyalties, you can see sign up, you have login to the site, which is the ghost, basically. But they are the two key CTAs that you use, but the major one has to speak out first. That's why it is called a ghost button. On enough, we'll just call it outline button. But yeah. So the next one I'll be talking about is the Hamburger Button. So a lot of people are used to seeing hamburgers. I'm sure if I ask all of you have seen hamburger somewhere or not. Yeah. So hamburger menu is the menu that is the button that actually hides all the menus, in the sense that um let's say I have a website, I have a list of things that I cannot show at once. How best can I show it? How best can I undo it? We use an hamburger icon, an hamburger menu button, basically. And hamburger menu is already a kind of button that almost everybody understands. We don't need new learnings to actually understand that this is an hamburger menu. We know something that must have been hidden somewhere. That's why we are using an hamburger menu. So it's easily understandable for users to see. So this kind of menu is basically the hamburger menu is basically named due to the form made of three-dimensional lines, and they look like typical bread meat hamburger. So it is a very widely used interactive element on web and mobile. There are a lot of pros and cons to it, but there's a lot of debate on that. Some people say you are hiding important things, and some people say it's best for you to hide the important things, things that are not necessarily okay for users to see at once, basically. So where can you use the hamburger menu? You use them on mobile apps, and you can also use them on you can also use them on websites. So once you interact with hamburger menu, they always bring out other things for you to actually interact with. You can, and it's mostly used by Google. Google uses hamburger menu a lot on their apps. So if you on Play Store or anything, you always see hamburger menu. And I think one of the apps that really don't use the hamburger menu is the iOS. The iOS teams are always mostly against hamburger menus, but we still use them for, if necessary, we kind of use them on iOS also. Yeah. So the other button I'll be talking about is the plus button. I specifically said I should talk about this. It's majorly an action button also, but the plus button is majorly seen everywhere. You when you are trying to write a new tweet, it's a plus button you see. When you are trying to write a message a new person on WhatsApp, you're seeing a plus button. Although I think on WhatsApp is redesigned as a fab, but yeah, you always see a plus button almost everywhere. And when you click on a plus button, it enables a user to add some new content to the system, depending on the kind of app. It can be a new post, a new name, a new contact, a new note, different things. When you're on a list, it is going to be a list. So it's basically a button for the basic action on a digital product or a list, basically. So most times when you tap the plus button, is either a modal window of creating a new content. In some cases, there's also a medium stage where they are giving additional options to choose from and make adding content more focused, basically. So most times when you click on these add buttons, that you go to a new page, a modal comes up for you to actually create a new content, or it gives you more option. Like, let's say when I click on the plus button, it shows me do this, do that before I then go to the new thing. So if I'm on WhatsApp and I click on plus, is either it's telling me, okay, add a new contact or message an existing contact, something like that. So it depends on where you are using it. The plus button is basically for you to take an action of adding something to a list or anything, basically. So right here now is the expandable button. So this button basically almost functions like the plus buttons, but the buttons opens a variety of options after being clicked or tapped on. And these are examples of where you can see it. You can see as I'm clicking this button, it's changing to more options where I can select more stuffs. If I click on it here, it's showing me different options, and you can also click it to actually close it. I think a good example of an everyday expandable button. I'm trying to look for an app on my phone. Oh shit. I'll try to remember. Once I remember, I'll give you an option. Basically, so it is one more way. It is one more way to set the proper flow of interaction without overloading the screen. So you use the expandable button when you have many users to do, but you don't want to overload the screen, and you want it simple. And where do we use this a lot? This kind of button is used majorly on mobile screens because of the limited screen space, basically. So when you see this, you majorly see it on mobile apps, you understand, and they are used to just limit the kind of things that you see on the screen all at once. Basically, that's why you can find them majorly on just mobile phones. So that's an expandable button and how it is used. Share button. So I'm just talking about share button based on the kind of era we are in, the era of social media up and down, chatting, email, doing this and stuff. So one of the common buttons we kind of interact with on a daily. I do this on a daily, so I share things with people. I can see a tweet today and I'm sharing with people, and it is the share button. So with the high popularity of social networks, chatting and email, this button simplify the process of connecting an app or website content to users' social profile. So this button of this type enables to share the content or achievement directly to social networking accounts. To make the connection clear, it is represented with icons which feature a brand sign of particular social networks and are easily recognizable. So most times you'll be saying share share to Facebook, share to Twitter, tweet on Twitter, and stuff like that. You'll see them, and you can also see them as plainly as share, which have like I kind of know like 3 different icons for share buttons, but like I said, they can be confusing based on the kind of based on the app you are using. So I think on Twitter you have share to be, I think their share is like this guy here. On another app, I think Twitter share is like this guy. On another app, you can have their share like this. Another app, you can have the share like this. Um, Basically. So there are different icons that you can use for your share buttons, and depending on the app, once you use them for the first time, you always understand them. I think a lot of us should be accustomed to, I think these 3 types that I'm showing here, a lot of us might have seen them before. So those are like what the show basically. And where do we use this? Sometimes we use it on blog posts, we use it on achievements. When you achieve something, what is the next thing you are supposed to do? You are supposed to share with people. uh, Basically, if you in this popular game called World that everybody is playing up and down now, I'm one of the everybody. Basically, once you finish the game and you get your answers, it tells you to share because they are trying to get to a community. They are trying to let people come back to the website to actually play this game. They are trying to you're also trying to publish your achievements, even if it's, I think if you use Duolingo, once you reach 100 streaks, it tells you to share it. These are the kind of buttons they actually use on these pages to actually let people share directly. So it won't give you it's more direct for users to actually use basically. So that's going to be share button. um Which one have I not mentioned? Yeah. So I think I'll speak on one left, and that's going to be raised buttons. Raised buttons is more of like a style than a. So raised buttons are known as contain buttons, are rectangular. It can add dimension to all the flat layout. Is embossed. The its embossed effect attracts the users to click and press the button. You understand? So these are basically more of about the style of a button. How does this button actually look like? Basically, is instead of the normal flat buttons you see, they are raised. So they kind of call out to a user to actually click on it, basically. And for example, if you look at my screen here, this is a sample of raised button where you can see that the shadow, the effect is giving it is actually distinctive enough for you to actually see it, basically, and it is not hiding on the screen. Yeah. So I think that's all for now for the types of button. There are still more that I did not talk about, but these are like the few that you kind of encounter on a daily basis, and you see and you use them regularly. So what I'll be talking about now is states. What are button states? Um, I've mentioned the type of button. I even mentioned fabs. I mentioned what's the name? Call to action, drop down button stuff. There's something called interaction between these guys. When I see down button, how did I see it? How did it respond? When I click on what kind of response I get? These are the different kind of states you will always see when you are interacting with the button. So these states are basically like feedback to tell me, okay, when I clicked on this, it clicked, it worked. When I filled all my information on a data and I can log in, what is the visual representative that is telling me that, okay, I have actually clicked on login? Do I have to look at my browser to see something loading, or does the button actually tells me that yes, you clicked on me and I'm working on what you requested for because I requested by just clicking? So it has to give me a feedback. So states refer to the different forms an element can take based on the context that is being used in. So depending on how you use them, it is how they will respond to you. So let's take a light switch. You understand? When it comes to a light switch and the switch has up and down, the normal, if it's not a special button or press in or press out. So the normal one we have in Nigeria that we have in our houses is up and down, basically. And when it is up, I think when it's up, I think it's off, and when it's down, it is on, basically. So the same applies to something like a toggle switch in UI. Yeah, that's one of the buttons I did not mention. Yeah, like a toggle switch, where when it's on, it stay green, and when it is off, it is kind of gray. Basically, yeah. So, and how you acquiring. So I'll be speaking on the different types of states that you will generally come to use and interact with as even a product user. You understand? As a product user, how do I use and how do I see? How do they respond to me? Basically. So that's what we'll be talking about. Wrap up the class. So there are different types of states, which is going to be determined by kind of you are working on. So I'll be using this particular kind of button to actually explain all the states for you, which are like this is majorly a CTA button, and you can see I have a primary button and a secondary button. So I have which is the default, the hover state, the disabled state, the active state, and the loading state. So these are like the 5 states you always see whenever you are interacting with a button or a field. So what's the default button? Default button is basically how the button is not interacted with. A lot of people call this also normal state. So basically, when the button you see is basically a normal button, is in the default state. Nobody has touched it, but it is available for you to touch it. You understand? That's a default state. The second state, and I'll try to show samples of me using design to dark. Yeah. So hover state is basically the time I move my mouse on a default button, a button that is in its resting stage, in its normal state. The moment I move my mouse over, I've interacted with the button. So hover state is basically a state which is very specific to web usage. As on mobile, you can't actually interact with hovers on mobile, and because the input states are different. This is the state that the button will be in the mouse cursor. It's a very helpful state in indicating that something can be interacted with as the cursor moves around the screen. So because as we are moving around using our cursor, and I move on this button, and it gives me a feedback. The feedback tells me click on me. You understand? So there are like ways you can then use to this is a way to tell the user that, oh, it's interactive, and you can actually click on it for you to work. Basically. So that's the interactive state. So there's also one called focus state. So focus state is basically important for accessibility. Though many don't draw attention to this, its presence is a crucial one for highlighting buttons as someone uses tab to navigate a website. Often you will see this state as a light blue outline around the button or clickable object, but this varies depending on the browser default. So the focus state is after opening it, and this is particular to a drop down button. When your drop down is active, it means you are focused on this, and it's majorly tells you that it's in use, or you're focused on it, or let's say I've hovered on it, left it. The last active button, the last one I was focused on, will actually be highlighted. This can be seen majorly on tabs. So if you are using different tabs in designs, you always see this. It's just to give you a feedback of where you are. I'll try to look for a sample before the class ends so that I'll show you the style for focus button. I forgot to add it here. The active state. The active state is also uh, used for click. When you've clicked on it, is like as it was in the default, I hover on it and I clicked. What is the feedback that shows that I have clicked the button? Basically, is the active state. So it majorly looks like something that you've pressed inside. So the sample on my screen here shows that there's an outline, and it's trying to have an inner shadow, which means it has gone inside. You understand? Basically, it's to show something that has been clicked. Then we also have the disabled button. Sorry, I missed that. The disabled button is like uh, a call to action that is telling you I'm not active until you actually take another action. So the disabled button is a kind of state that signifies that a button is available for interaction. It is available, but not yet for you to actually interact with. So this is used if a process is loading, or as a way of blocking action, or in situations where the action is tied to a premium feature that requires upgrades. So whenever you are trying to upselling a product, you use disabled button to show that you can, let's say I have a feature I want to use on a particular screen and it says use me. You understand? But it is disabled. So when I am trying to click on it, it shows another action that says for you to use this button, you have to actually upgrade. So a lot of people use it to upsell at that point. Basically. So whenever you are using a disabled button, one thing I will always say is to always add a tooltip so that users understand why it is disabled and why it is unavailable for you to actually use, and you don't just talk users to a disabled button. Basically, also always give feedback when it is clicked so that users will know that, oh, I clicked, I'm supposed to fill this, I'm supposed to fill this form before actually clicking on this button for you to be active. So most times disabled buttons turn to default buttons once an action has been performed on the page, or something that you are waiting for to load as fully loaded. Basically, that's when you use disabled button. And the last one is the loading button. So loading button, also known as processing button, it is used when an action has been taken and the system is working, basically to process that. So where are these loading buttons used mostly? I think when you're trying to upload something and you click and your main CTA has an upload icon, and basically when you upload and it is uploading, uploading takes a while depending on your bandwidth, depending on the screen type. So it takes a while. So when you click on uploading, it shows you into different styles that is loading for you to it's uploading, and it sometimes will give you percentages or stuff. So depending on the action you are taking, you will see the loading effect. Just so you know that there is um there's an action that is actually taken in, and this can often be paired with the disabled state to prevent duplicate actions. Basically, so most times when you see the loading state, you are not allowed to do another action. So most times it gets disabled while it is actually loading or uploading or doing anything. Basically, yeah. So these are like the different types of states that we have in buttons. I'm trying to open a file to show how myself also work on buttons. Sorry, for you to see. Uh, basically. So this is more of like a design system I have with me. So I'll just go to the buttons to show you the different stuff. So like I said, this is like the default buttons that were created. But when I interact with them, they will always interact. They will always give me feedback based on what I do with them. So this is a state button, and when I hover on it, if you can see my screen very well. Sorry, please, can you all see my screen? I'm just trying to confirm that. All right. Okay, so yeah, if I hover on this screen, on this button, it actually shows me that it gives me the feedback that my mouse is on it, basically. So it's showing that, yeah, you've hovered on me, and I'm like, okay, that's good, and I can then use the button to do the action I'm supposed to do. But when it's disabled, it has a different color to it and tells me that no, I'm disabled and I cannot do anything. So most times this kind of button gives me feedback whenever I interact on them. It's in action. This is when it's in overstate, and this is when it is disabled. So for most of these buttons, I actually have like three different states for them because of the kind of stuff I have. So yeah, for buttons to when you are for buttons, when you use just icons for your buttons, most times it's on web not to use them. But whenever you are stuck and you cannot but use just icons, make sure you have an over tip to it, basically. So for this kind of action, for this button, my hover action basically states that I should put a tooltip there. You understand? As I'm interacting with it, as I am as a user, as I'm interacting with the button, it tells me, okay, I don't know what this button is. But when I hover on it, it actually shows me what I'm supposed to do. So if I want to go and press it, I don't actually know what I'm trying to press it. It's already showing me, and it's something that we like dropped on what I was supposed to do. It tells me immediately that, guy, don't do this. This is for this particular thing. Then I can retake my process. It's always advisable not to use just icons sometimes when you are creating when you're doing buttons that actually need that are of high value. But if you cannot run away from it, try to always put a tooltip to it, basically. So yeah, so I talked about text button also. So for text buttons, basically, this is the style that is used on this design system, and the hover effect is basically to show you an underline and it changes the color. So whenever as a user, I come to the button, when I hover on it, it changes the color to to a darker shade of the green and also underlines it so that it tells me that I'm ready to take an action. Take me, bro. That is what it's telling me, basically. And the last button I have here is basically like a drop down button. Like I mentioned earlier, we have drop down button also. So you can see as I move on it, basically, this is more of not a drop down. This is like a multi-select button, a multi-action button where I can actually just select on this button and it takes the action, but it gives me an extra kind of action, which is the drop down part of it. So it's more of like a matched button, a single action button that also has the capability of doing a multi-action button. So it's always separated by um, a line, or let's say a border, to show that it's a double button. Basically, it's a multiple button. And if I click on this guy, it takes the action, but I can take an extra step by clicking on the arrow next to it, which then gives me a drop down and shows me an extra thing I can actually do. So this is when I say a button is in its active state. So it's active, and I can still do an extra action here. It's in its active stage, and I can then take another extra action. So those are like samples of creating state and buttons, and over the over effects. How do they come? This is how they do it. And yeah, I have primary and secondary buttons, which are used in different ways, and the kind of designs I'm actually working on. Also, if I'm showing, these are like the different sizes of buttons, how you actually size your button. This button style is mobile. So this is mobile focused buttons, and they don't have a state called hover state, because on mobile you cannot actually have hovers. But they are different types of buttons, the way you use them, the way you color them. So these are majorly like my primary buttons, the ones that I use for call to actions. These are my secondary buttons, the ones I use for let's say the ghost buttons. And basically, then this kind of button is buttons that have values to them. Maybe I'm having extra things, I can add values, maybe numbers, and basically this is how I add to them. Let's say, like I said in the other one, that you're adding something to cart. If I'm showing that add something to cart, what is already in my cart already, I can show the numbers of items that are already there using this kind of button. Then I also have the share social buttons. So basically, these buttons are so for you to, they are like distinctive to the different kind of application you're using, based on icons, and this on your social styles. So we have, for Facebook, there are multiples that are available out there, but these are like the ones I use personally for this project. Yeah. So yeah, that's it when it comes to buttons and their states. I tried to show some examples just now, and for now, I think we've used like 35, 30 on this talk, and I would like to hear you guys speak now. So questions, you can ask your questions. So if you have questions, please raise your hand. I see that someone said, Ayola said he has a question. So if you have a question, you can just raise your hand. I will unmute you to actually ask the question.
Thank you very much for the teaching so far. So my question is, this concerning the states on a button. I want to ask, is there a particular tool that can do all this, that can make us that we can use to make all these states on the button, or we have to use different sets of buttons to make these states? Like, we have to make this state on a button, right? When designing an app, like we have to like design that part also. Well, I want to know, is there a
Okay.
particular tool that we can use to do everything, or we have to use a set of tools?
So the tools you use is going to determine how best you create the state. So our tools have gotten so advanced that you can actually create a state on each of the button, and you're going to interact. The sample I showed you just now is just a button, and you can see I was able to show you this, the hover state, and also the what's the name, and also the disabled state. This is because I was able to do it on the design too. So the tools that you actually use for these buttons will determine how best you can do it. And I'm coming, just give me a minute. I'm trying to see the syllabus if you guys have been taking through variants. Just give me a minute. Whether you still learn how to do this in future. So yes, there are ways to actually do this. Okay. You know what I will do? I will just run through a sample of how I do my buttons, on the two softwares I use, Adobe and Figma, so that I'll be able to answer you better with what's the name? So that I'll be able to explain better how you can actually create it. While I prepare for that, anybody else has a question, please, you can ask before I move to that. Okay, I think Timmy has a question. Timmy Sani. Timmy, you can shoot.
Yes, thank you. My question would be, is it all websites that have this call to action button? For example, on news websites, we just see news. You just see them listed on the website, then you can click on it to go to the link of that news. What would we call the call to action button on such websites?
I didn't hear you very well, but I think I got the basic of the question, which is, does every website have a call to action button?
Yeah.
Who is designing a website that doesn't want to sell? Who is designing a website that doesn't want a user to actually take it? Is a very key thing. So let's define the kind of websites that there are. There are e-commerce websites. When you get there, it's for you to buy something. They're always shouting to you, buy. Their own call to action might be the goods that you are actually seeing. So that's a button style, like the goods they are showing. Let's go to a software development company. A software development company basically wants you to come and develop your software with them. So what you will be seeing is talk to sales up and down. It's a call to action. When you go to a software company like Amazon, I'm not even talking about Amazon. Let's talk of Jira. When you go to Jira, the first thing you see is sign in, sign up. You understand? They are trying to buy. Try this app for 7 days free. They're trying to buy it. So for every website, for everything, there will always be this primary action they want you to take. The ones I know that you might not see call to action is portfolio websites, but guess what? You still see contact me everywhere. You understand? That's their option. So most websites we have a primary action for a user to actually take. You get, and there's no way uh, you might not see a call to action. So call to action is key for you to actually convert your users. So if your website is basically for you to get someone to buy something for you, you have a call to action. Newsletters are kind of websites where you might not see call to actions easily, but guess what? You still see it. You still see newsletter telling you to subscribe. Those are like different call to actions that you always see, basically. So yeah, it's not, if you don't want to sell, you don't need to use call to action. If you don't want people to take actions, you don't need to use call to action. But on most websites, they are built so that an action will be taken. So a lot of people will actually have actions. So someone asked, is there a default size to creating buttons? That's a very intelligent question. Why didn't I talk about sizes? So depending on what you are building for, is it an app? Is it an app? Is it a website? They are different, and also your design system. There are different button sizes, and like the sample I shared earlier, I showed different sizes of buttons. I showed big, medium, and small. Where and why did I size differently like this? Basically. So for this one, my web buttons. I'm using all these buttons on web, and I have a standard button size. So there are sizes people don't actually go over. I know your button can be as big as anything. There are people that actually have buttons in this form. This will be their button, and let's say then their text will be, their text may be like this. This will be their button, and they can just hide it. Like, let's say I say, okay, do click me. You understand? This can be someone else's button. So depending on where the person is actually using it, their button can be as big as this. But for what you are doing, for what you are designing, button sizes are relative. You understand? Based on where you are using them. So we size them by let's say how big they are to how small they are. So for this design system particularly, I have three different sizes of buttons. I have the medium, the large, and the extra large. Where I use the extra large, I won't use the large, and I won't use the medium. And where I use the medium, I won't use the large, and I won't use the extra large. So there are different sizes to it. So when for some people small, some people's medium can be from 32 pixels. I'm talking of height right now, from 32 pixels to like 40 pixels. But for me, for this particular one, I think I'm using 32 pixels because I want it as small as a pew, so that where I'm using them, they are going to be small spaces. So I just want them to be like small stuff. They have to shout out on the page. So I needed them. Then for my medium, I think my medium is what I use majorly around when I'm designing. It's just basically because it's big and small at the same time. I think I'm using about 48 pixels for this particular one. And for my extra large, I'm using 56. So extra large for some people can be 64. Depends on the kind of feel you want to use. There's an app that I use is Mirror. Their buttons are big. So depends on how you want users to interact, how you want it to feel like when you are using it. That's how big your buttons should be. But you should always have the different sizes of. When you need a small button, use a small button. When you need a medium button, use a medium button. And when you need a large button, use a large button. Going to be that. Also, one thing I would also like to point out is on iOS and Android, I have two different button styles for mobile, but they are both mobiles. But one thing I try to do is I try to mimic what the guidelines. Sorry, I'm getting a feedback on that. I try to mimic the guidelines that um, these platforms have set. So most times I try to say, okay, when I'm designing for iOS, I want my buttons to be this size, and when I'm designing for Android, I want my buttons to be this size. Not just because I want it, but because I have noticed it through a trend from the owners themselves, from Apple. I've seen that okay, these are how they set up their stuff. For Android, I've noticed that this is how they set up their buttons. Basically. Sorry, I'm hearing feedback from someone. So for Android, most times the button size for the default sizes are always 48 pixels. They are smaller than what you see on iOS. These are always like 48 pixels, the height, basically. And whenever I'm designing for Android, this is the button stick first, slightly bigger, like 6 pixels, based on their own design system. So when I'm designing for iOS, I try to mimic what their design system is. Even though I'm my own design system, I try to get them as my background. Understand? So those are like the basic things that determine my sizes, and where I'm also using them determines the sizes. Where I'm going to use this button is going to be different from where I'm going to use this button. You understand? So that's going to be determined by by that basically. So if you understand that, I think I'll try to move to the earlier question. Or does anybody else have a question to ask? Okay. Let me jump to figure so that I'll just use the next 5 minutes to describe how states are actually created. I'm sure one of the syllabus will still define. I think in the syllabus we still get to define. I'll still try to define how best and this can be done. So let me just show you guys hands on how I create my different styles. Okay. All right. So this Adobe XD. I'll just sharply show you how I created one of these buttons to actually give you an idea that yes, you can have your what's the name? Your buttons created using just one software and it's showing the different states you have. So uh, let's say this is my first state. Yeah. So this is my first state. This is my default state. We have different states, right? But this is going to be my default. And how many states are we creating? We are creating the default state, the hover state, the disabled state, and also the active or loading state, basically. So I'll just create like 3 different states or 4 different states so that you see. So for XD, if you're familiar with XD, one thing they do is when you are creating your button, I can create this as a component. So for XD, when you want to create anything as components, you come to the right side and you see component. Once you see component, you see a plus button. When you click on the plus, it tells me that I have created a new button that I should update my life. So I've created a new button. This is the default state. You can see the state written here is default, but I need extra state, right? I need to create um, my hover state. So if I want to create my hover state, what I do is I come to the plus button again and I click plus button. It shows me some already set kind of state. So I have a new state, I have hover state, and I have toggle state. Because I'm creating my hover state, I'll create my hover state, right? So when I create my hover state, it has already created this as an hover state, but there's no difference between my hover state and my hover state, my default state and my hover state. So how do I make the difference? So what am I going to show users that this is an hover state? So one thing is I might change the color. So this is my primary color, and let's say this is my primary color, and I want to give it a shade that is darker to just show the user I can go to 700 or 600 color. So if I give it the shade, you can see, and I click on default. If I click on default, you can see the color is default, and when I click on over, the color has changed. I can say, okay, this color, is it doing justice to what I'm doing? I can add a drop down shadow. So when I add drop down shadow, it has added a drop down. Let me increase my plot to 220. I'm doing this so that you all see the effect of this guy. Okay, let me just do it so that you see this guy. So basically, I've done the over state and I've done the default state. So this default and this over. You can see there is a distinctive way that yes, something has happened here. In fact, let me just click on that spot out of here so that we'll test it out together. So if I try to preview this guy, if I preview this guy and I hover my mouse, there's a change. It has shown that yes, I've changed something because my mouse has hovered on it. If I leave it, it goes back to the default. But if I interact with it, it shows. What if I want another state for this button? I can just click on create new state. When I create a new state, let's say I want this to be my disabled. How do I want users to know that this button is disabled? Let's say, why not just reduce the opacity? Why not just reduce the opacity of the button? So for the opacity, is in 100 now. I can just say, okay, come to 20. When you are 20, users should be able to know is in what's the name? Is in a disabled state. But like I mentioned, most times you should try to give users feedback when something is in disabled state. So one of the things I will do is add a tooltip to the disabled state. If I want to add a tooltip to the disabled state, what should I do? Okay, I will be like, create a new state. When this new state, name it disabled over. When I name it disabled over, basically what you will see is I'll create a tooltip here and say I'll add a tooltip to the over state and say, sorry, I just copied the tooltip from somewhere, so don't mind. I'll add a tooltip to it. So it basically say this is how it's going to show when someone hovers on this. You get, so this is disabled. When you hover on it, it shows a tooltip. But how do I make this interactive by doing this? When I did the default line hover, I already have in the interaction there because it was the default interaction. But because I'm creating another hover on this same button, what I need to do is go to my prototype and say, okay, on this hover state, which is disabled state, when I take an action, my trigger should be hover. On hover, you should move this button to where? To the disabled hover state. You understand? So when I'm on this button and I click on play to actually see, when I hover, it shows this guy, basically, if I put this button to be on disabled state, if it's on disabled state and I come to the website and it's disabled and I click on it, it's showing me a tooltip of what to do. You understand? That's the hover state for a disabled button, basically. So as I come, I hover on it, it's showing me hover. So these are like ways you can actually create different states of a button on XT. So if you are using XT, how it works, basically it's quite simple and straightforward. So now let's move to Figma. All right. So for Figma, I'll be starting from things that I have here. So for Figma, same thing works with Figma. Basically, so let's say this is my port button, and I want to create different states for it. I want it to be like this on over. I want it to be like this on disabled. How am I going to do this? Now, just like XD, Figma also has the component state. So when I right click on the file I want to make a component, or using the the command option K button on my keyboard, I can create a state. So once I have created the state, it shows this is my default state. And to my left side here, you see that there was a change that happened here, which is like my variant has come up. So on Figma, if I want to create this a different state, this is my default state. So if I want to create a different state, all I need to do is create add variant. So once I add variant, it asks me to name the variant. So I can name this my over variant over state. Once I name this my over state, how do I want my over state to look like? I want my over state to look like this. So let's say uh, my over state is at some 5% of the normal state. So I can just select this guy select the color, and then change the color to like 25%. Basically, this is an overstate. If I want to create my disabled state, all I need to do is select this guy again and say I'm adding another variant. Add new variant. Once I add new variant, I'll name the variant disabled. Once I name the variant disabled, I can put my color for this one to like, let's say 20% of the color is disabled. So one difference between this and what I showed earlier on XD is this shows you the state all at once, and you can actually then see everything as well. So how do you interact with this kind of stuff? Basically, for Figma, when you come to prototype, you select each of the states and say, okay, for this one, I want you to move to this guy. You understand? So when I drag my connector to this guy, a pop-up comes and says on click. I don't want it to click. I want to be like while I'm hovering. While I'm hovering on it, I select it, then it changes to my hover state. So it says change to or navigate to, but I need it to change to something. So I click on change to, and then the properties it goes to based on what I have set. I have default hover and disabled. I select hover state, and I can change my animation to maybe it's smart animate, dissolve, and stuff. We'll talk more about all this later in the future, but basically, this is how it works. And then, if I am on disabled state, I can say, okay, just like I created for the other one, I can say I'm creating a new variant. Let's say add new variant, and my variant will be let's say disabled over. If my variant is disabled over, all I need to do is match this guy with what is here, uh, 20, and then I can create a tooltip from somewhere. Let me just quickly do that. Yeah, uh, sorry, don't mind my tooltip. I'm just trying to work. Should I on it to get time? Okay. Next. Yeah. So for this one, I can just drag this guy into my state. So here I am in the disabled over. This is the tooltip, and let me rename this to tooltip. So basically, it's under the disabled over, and I can just bring it up and say, okay, stay right here whenever someone interacts with you. So I can then go back to my prototype and say, from this guy, let me remove the guy here. From this, you have to come here, and what happens? It will be on over while hovering on it. So let me let me create a frame. Let me create a frame and then select each of these guys. Select this guy. Yeah. And then play this guy for you so that we'll use that to wrap up the class to see how best you can create state. Right. So when I hover on this guy, can see as I move my mouse, interactions happen. When I come to this guy too and I move my mouse, interaction also happens. So those are like the two ways you can create variant and different button states on the two popular softwares that people actually use to design. Basically, so when I hover, the two tips come. When I hover, it goes to my hover state to show that yes, I can do something. Basically, I think with this we'll be wrapping up the class. So that will take much more of our time. And basically, and I'll just say, if there are still questions, you can always reach out to me basically and drop me message on Slack. I'll try to reply everyone as soon as possible. Basically, sorry, I can be busy, but whenever you drop message, I'll try to look for time on it. And yeah, I think someone is asking me for my name. My name is Mobolanwa. I'm sorry I didn't do this intro. I did it in last class, but my name is Mobolanwa, and I'm currently here in Lagos, and I currently work under these platforms. I work at Outlane, Portal, and Brain Trust as a product designer, basically. And if you want to reach out to me apart from Slack, you can also do my Instagram or via LinkedIn. And basically, I'm not fully active on all these platforms, but I'll try to reply as soon as I can. So thank you very much. It was a nice time sharing my knowledge with you guys today. I'm trying to learn how best I can actually do this. Thank you very much for attending to this class. If there are messages, you can drop them. And if you want me to review some of the designs you guys have been doing, I know you guys will have started working on designs and stuff. You guys can share me, tag me on any of the posts somewhere. I'll try to comment and give feedback. I can't do too much, but I'll always try to give my best to actually do this. This class is already getting to where it will be interesting, and where it's going to be more interesting. You guys will have gotten to the buttons and stuff. I think you'll be working next on. I think the next class should be more on styling and stuff and tables and stuff. We'll be getting to where we'll be full on. I think I'll be taking one class that I know the class I'll be taking will be basically hands-on. All of us will actually be on the board and work together to actually get all these things done. Basically, it's more of an interactive class rather than me just talking. It's more of you actually doing things and me just sitting back to watch you guys. So I'll say thank you again, and it was nice talking to all of you. Yeah, I'll try to share my slides. they were poorly done, but I'll try to share it. I'll try to export them and share. So thank you and have a nice weekend. Bye, guys.